What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS First Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. Joined once again by one of the original, like true original. Oh, geez. Of the Wise Take Nation. That's right. Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref. Because when there's not a pandemic, he's a ref. Patio Joe, what's happening, bro?
Not much. It's already week 10. We are like flying through the season. There's no other sports, so all we can do is just concentrate on football right now.
Yeah, it's like me and Paulie been talking about this for a couple weeks, and obviously, you play baseball and you see what the grind is for basketball, especially with the last minute injuries and all that kind of stuff. And it's very stressful. Like, it's a very exciting period normally, but it's very stressful. Sweating the everyday sports of baseball and doing content for these sports as well, and then having to cram in for NFL. So that's stressful, but it's also fun. So like it's great, and I'm enjoying being able to dig in, and I feel way more prepared for football than I ever have. But I also, like, during the week, man, it's just like, fuck, man. It's just when you're used to that every day, bam, bam, bam. It's just like, damn,
I can imagine.
Ooh, what's that? Did something just kick on over there?
I was printing out something. That's
okay.
That was a printer. We're okay.
So some printer action. I thought maybe I hit the sweet spot.
Yeah.
I thought
no, we're good.
I thought I hit the sweet spot. Joey was getting excited. Things were happening.
Only the wife hits the sweet spot.
That's good to know. That's definitely good to know. Shout out to those of you who are hanging out with us live here as we do it. Doing a little bit earlier than usual. I know we had advertised. Normally we do 11:30, and that'll be the usual. But Patio Joe doesn't got the kids, so we were able to, come through, do it a little bit earlier. Maybe let me get to bed at a decent hour. So shout out to Patio Joe for making this happen.
It's like midnight by the time we start sometimes, or by the time we finish. So get you to bed earlier, because I know you got a baby on the way. You need to rest up.
I appreciate that.
On your sleep.
Definitely appreciate that. If you're watching us live and you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. It really helps us out. Let's continue to do what we do, which is doing dirties on YouTube and the DFS industry and on Twitch. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitch, whatever the case is. Notifications bell on so you're notified whenever we do go live, and you don't miss any of the free DFS content we put out. With that said, we are going to talk about our listener league, man. So we did the listener league. I made the entry free so anyone could get in. Went ahead and handled that. And we did have a couple of winners. Did I hear something there?
Don't worry about it.
Shows answer for everything. No, I wasn't sure if I did, but then by your reaction, I was like, I definitely did. But yeah, so shout out to the winners. We'll go over this right now. We'll do DraftKings first, if I can just figure out how to do it. Here we are. All right, so on DraftKings, our boy MG, who won 15 grand the same day that I won 17. Except I risked like $1,000 to do it. He risked like 100. So shout out to OG. He continues to dominate. OG MG, that is. MG, hit us up in a Slack. We'll send you this $25. Not that you need it, big boy, but you did earn it. So we're gonna do that for you. Taking a look at MG's lineup, the magical lineup. Looks like he had Josh Allen, Dalvin Cook. He went with Homer, which, like, shout out to him. That was one of my takes too. I took another shot at Homer. It looked terrible. It wasn't great. But on DraftKings, Homer at 4K did get 11. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. I know it was looking pretty bleak. It was like 90% of those fantasy points, Joe, came in the fourth quarter. And it was just like one drive. He caught like a 50-yard pass. Wasn't a touchdown, but did he catch a 50-yard pass? He only had 3 receptions. Had 16 rushing yards and 64 receiving yards, adding up to 11 DraftKings points. Stephon Diggs and Lockett, those were 2 guys that I was really big on this week, and Diggs was okay, but nothing spectacular. Tyler Lockett, obviously a disaster as chalk. I don't know how that game shoots out 34-44, and these guys didn't smash, but a little thing we like to call variance there, right, Joe?
Yeah, variance. Yeah. It's weird because Lockett had the better matchup, but DK, man, he's just a beast. He's just the man. I mean, Tre'Davious White, I think, went out hurt too. So
That certainly helped, yeah. But to your point, I do think that, like, even against Patrick Peterson, I don't think that, like, I don't think it was so much about them avoiding Patrick Peterson as it was attacking Kirkpatrick because they saw he was hurt. You know, so I mean, I think DK is one of the more matchup-proof guys. I think we'll see that as his career goes on. Judy, Joe, you were big on Judy. He's got Judy here. Judy smash spot. I know that was a Joey special, right?
Yeah, that was in a core play for me. I thought, he had a good matchup. He's playing more outside lately, and he had some good matchups. So I think that this offense has got to just decide to throw the ball more because they can't run the ball. So they just need to just throw the ball. They're all healthy, him, Hamler, and Patrick. So Judy was a great call. Yeah.
Loving it. Hayden Hurst, and then he went with MG went with Dobbins, man. I guess he was looking at it like whatever I got to do to get Cook and Allen and all these guys in there. But he won the Listener League on DraftKings. Shout out to him, OGMG. Hit us up for your cut. Do the dirty. Now, switching over to FanDuel, which I forgot to actually set my team on FanDuel. I did play on FanDuel. I actually lost on DraftKings and won on FanDuel, but I forgot to fucking set my team in the Listener League. Shout out to JM Sword. I know the name, but for some reason, whenever I try to say his name for years now, I get it all twisted up. But JM Sword with a 149. He is our first place Twitter. Same thing with you. Hit me up in Slack or DM us on Twitter at @wise_take. We'll hook you up with $25 for winning the FanDuel Listener League. He went a little bit of a different route, Joe, and this is obviously on FanDuel. Deshaun Watson, right? So didn't get quite the same score as Allen, but still was good. Put up 24 FanDuel points. Dalvin Cook, obviously, which was a common denominator. You kind of had to have him. One other common denominator on this team, and that was your boy Judy, man. Who did really well on both sides for his price. Smash Fest. Wasn't too pretty. Tyler Lockett busted for him. I like this. So he it's obviously a contrarian move, and this is the team that, like, this is a move that I would have made in a larger field contest, but obviously this is a competition thing, and we do it for bragging rights and all that, so I get the move. He played Cole Beasley over Stephon Diggs. So it didn't work, obviously, but I respect the process. Right, Beasley was significantly lower owned than Diggs. It was a way to get exposure to that offense, who did score 44 points. And I think, and you and I were both alluding last week, Seattle has been bad against the slot. So making that kind of pivot obviously didn't pay off the way I'm sure he would have liked, except for in this contest. But still a ballsy move.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I had a lineup like that. I think Sunday I was messing with my cash lineup all day Sunday. I took the bait when I heard that there was Broncos were going to have two corners out and Calvin Ridley was out. I just thought this was just going to be the Julio spot of all spots, and this was going to be it. He was going to blow up. How do they put up 37 points and Julio only gets 13 is amazing. It's if we can find the game that Julio actually blows up, I think we could actually win some money. But it's just really tough these days. Julio he never seems to smash when we think it's going to happen.
I know, it's true. I mean, that whole game. I mean, the same thing. Like I also had Judy. Like I think Drew Lock was my third quarterback in the write up, and he was my third quarterback overall. And it was nice, Judy and Locke, that was cool for their prices, was awesome. But Noah Fant, it was the same thing. Like, how did he not smash? Like, how did he not? I don't know. He got hurt, but he came right back fucking in. It's so frustrating sometimes and we had this conversation. I think it was the Y stream. There was somebody in the chat, one of our regulars, shout out to him, who mentioned that every team is going to try to prepare and take out the opposing team's best option. And what we said was the difference is that some teams are actually good at it and some are not. And in this particular situation, it's like Atlanta has continually not done anything to help their problem against tight ends. Yet certain teams just don't want to attack them there. They want to stick with their game plan. They want to play the way their team plays or whatever, what have you. And they refuse. That's what one of the things I like about Russell Wilson, Seattle, and them is they change their approach based off who they're playing. Like, you can usually predict what they're going to do offensively. Obviously, they fell way behind in this particular game. Didn't go the way we expected, but the simple way of like kind of, okay, well, you see that they're going to look for the weakness in the opposing team, and they're just going to keep fucking going. And it boggles my mind that it seems like more teams don't try that. Maybe they do, and it just doesn't work that way. But it seems to me like some teams are more like, the coaches are like, no, we're gonna play our way. We're gonna make them play our way, and all this kind of shit. And I'm just like, I would rather just take whatever path is easiest. You know, like, I mean, just if your object is to win the game, right? I don't know, man. Boggles my mind. But shout out to him. JM Sword hit me up. It's $25, $50 total. Split MG, winning one, and JM Sword hit us up to receive your money. With that said, and by the way, Joe, I think I'm finding out from Wig, we have a couple trolls who are just consistently hitting the thumbs down button on us. Like it's either 3 or 4 people or some fat jerk off with 4 accounts. It's something like that, and they just kind of go through and they think they're cute hitting the little thumbs down thing, and you know, I don't know. But Nation, it's all good. Appreciate those of you who are hitting that like button. It is a little bit more important to get those likes up when you got some dick doing shit like that. But we are aware. Nothing we can really do about it. You know, dicks will be dicks. You just gotta. It's the same thing in real life, bro. YouTube is like real life. You gotta just deal with it. Now, some people sometimes there's assholes in life, and you know what you do? You punch them in the mouth. But if you can't do that, then you just gotta deal with it. Yeah. So. But
hey, no reaction is. I mean, a bad reaction is better than no reaction. Right?
It's true.
Isn't that what they say in wrestling?
Yes. Oh.
Isn't that what they say in wrestling?
I'm sure. Shit.
You know?
In wrestling, you do anything for any attention. You do anything for any reaction, anything for any attention. Absolutely. All right, Joe, with that said, we're going to jump into week 10. By the way, Nation, in the description, you will find the Listener League links for week 10. So make sure you go ahead and hop in that. We'll give everybody a reminder on Friday night's Y stream. But hop in there. It's free. Going to give $25 each again for DraftKings, FanDuel. A little bit of bragging rights. We kind of come in, dissect your lineup. It's a good time, and it's free. So make sure you hop in there. Okay. Now it's time to move on to this glorious first game, which is the Philadelphia Eagles visiting the New York Giants. You have a 44.5 total that's come up from 41. Eagles currently 3.5-point favorites after opening as 3-point favorites on the road. Joey, talk to me about Carson Wentz and the Eagles.
Yeah, first of all, this slate, guys, is the first that I can remember where there's more late afternoon games than there is morning games, as we call it in the West Coast. There's the morning slate and there's the early slate. There's only 5 early games and there's 6 late games. It's kind of different. I like it. I wish it was more even like this. But into this game, you know, this is the second time that they've played this year. Carson Wentz at 7,500. There's just too many other quarterback options this week, and Carson Wentz just makes too many mistakes. I'm sorry. I just can't deal with it. I'm not going to go there. Running back wise, we got to see if Miles Sanders is healthy, but he's at a price where there's just other guys that are more tempting. Wide receivers, I think Travis Fulgham definitely is on my radar as a decent value at 6,800. Since he's been the starter, you know, he's gotten like over almost 40 targets in 4 games. So I can dig with that. He's had over 75 yards in every start that he's had. He's had 4 touchdowns on the season. So Travis Fulgham, I think, is the best receiving option. And then Dallas Goddard has got to be one of the top 5 tight ends on this week or for the slate. He's at 5,800. He's at a decent price, so I don't mind that either. And then you could always play the Philly defense against a Daniel Jones offense because he is very mistake prone.
Yeah, I'm not terribly interested in Carson Wentz. You can make a case for Miles Sanders. The Giants are pretty good against the run, but when Sanders is healthy and does play, just purely volume, whenever his price is reasonable, you can take a shot. But it's definitely the passing game I'm more interested in. Like you said, between Rager, Fulgham. Rager looked pretty good. Rager's 4,200 on DraftKings. Fulgham a little bit more expensive at 64. So I think Fulgram's ownership should come in a lot lower because I think most people who are looking to attack this spot will settle for Rager. Not to mention he probably just does more for your team at 4,200. So I expect him to be a popular value play. And I don't think either one is necessarily like nutty enough for the Giants would try to have shadow coverage or Bradbury. I think that's going to kind of give him whatever side of the field he wants and say whichever asshole lines up against you, do dirties, I guess. But, Rager at 4,200 is hard to argue against. Fulgham for the ownership. And then, like you said, Dallas Goddard, man, I know he's been, a little slow to come on since coming back. It's only been, short sample since he's been back, but 4,200, still no Ertz. There are a few of those cheap tight ends that are at least in play, and he's certainly one of them. What about the Giants?
Giants, it basically comes down to two players that you're looking at. One is Sterling Shepard, who on FanDuel is 5,500, and he's priced lower than Darius Slayton, who's been almost phased out of the offense. Even with Golden Tate, he just hasn't really done much. Sterling Shepard has seen his usage go up since he's been healthy, and it's kind of shows you like who's the number one receiver really. The other guy I'm looking for, and he was my cash game tight end, came through. Evan Ingram at 5,600. His price didn't go up, but maybe $100. He's had 29 targets over the last 3 weeks. He's also had 16 catches, and he scored a touchdown. So he's in that group of tight ends where, he's going to get you 5 for 50, and whether or not their good day is if they fall in the end zone. So Ingram's on the short list for tight ends this week also, but it's basically just Ingram and Shepard.
Yeah, curious to see where Golden Tate falls and all this shit, right? After his little pseudo suspension last week for a game. I mean, we'll see if he's even, I don't know.
You might not even play.
Yeah, right?
You might not even play.
I mean, if you're him, man, I mean, you're a veteran. And, like, for you to get benched on a sorry-ass team like this, like, for them to prove a point and make you an example, like, I don't blame him if he I don't even know if he wants to play. With that said, assuming Freeman is back, I think that Gallman and Freeman are both kind of in tough situations here. But like you said, Evan Ingram does kind of stand out, even when looking at the receiver core. Sure, you can take shots on Shepard. Sure, Slayton's got a lot of upside at a cheap price as a downfield threat. But Ingram has the DVP matchup. 6th most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends is Philly. So I think I'm with you on that one. Moving on to the next game, we've got the Houston Texans visiting the Cleveland Browns. We have a 53 total that's down from 54. The Browns opened up -2.5 at home. They're currently up to -3. Joe, start us off with the Houston side.
Yeah, this game has got a couple question marks, starting off for the Houston side, whether or not we get Duke Johnson or David Johnson, one of the, which Johnson's going to be swinging on Sunday. I'm hoping it's David Johnson takes the week off and it's just Duke Johnson, so we can have just almost all the carries go to Duke. He's $500 less than David Johnson, so that would make him a little bit more, attractive. And we have the revenge game narrative against his old team in the Browns. So I probably prefer Duke Johnson for the run game. Quarterback, Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's been nothing but just steady Eddie. And he's getting you 3x to 4x almost every game. He's on your short list of cash games this week, every week. He's Mr. Dependable Watson. Wide receiver, Will Fuller, obviously is a great spot. We know that you can throw on this Cleveland offense. I don't mind that. Brandon Cooks is coming up too. Tight end, you don't need it. Don't try and go there. And you don't need the defense either.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly a lot more attractive than the Philly Eagles game. I'm cool with Watson as well. I think you're pretty much cool with him every week as long as his price is not out of hand. And on DraftKings, only 6,900. Browns have allowed the 10th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. I'm with you on the Duke Johnson sake. If David Johnson's in, I'm not terribly interested in either because it's not like it's the phenomenal matchup. Yeah. This is a pass funnel team, but like you said, if David Johnson's out, and we could expect Duke Johnson to get elite volume, if you want to call it that, at least for him, then I can be, talked into. But the receivers look really good here, right? Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks in particular. 6-7 for Fuller on DraftKings, 5-6 for Cooks. The Browns have been torched by receivers all season. 5th most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. So, yeah, I mean, the pass game here is definitely the standout. At the moment. Watson definitely on the quarterback list. Fuller, Cooks on the stack list. Let's go. What about the Browns, though?
So the Browns are coming off of a bye, and the biggest question is going to be, is Nick Chubb back? And and what kind of game script do you think is going to happen? I think that they desperately need the running game back. We've seen Kareem Hunt get the featured role. I'm sorry, he had the chance against the Raiders and against the Bengals. He was chalk city. He didn't do it. I mean, I get it against the Colts and the Steelers. He had a tough time. I understand that. But against the Browns and against the Bengals and the Raiders, he had a chance to really blow up and prove that he's just as good as my boy Nick Chubb, and he didn't. So Chubb, if he comes back this week, definitely got to look at him. He's 8,200 on FanDuel. It's a GBP play, but the Texans can be run on. And the Browns' identity is to run the football. We have Baker Mayfield still on the COVID list, so we don't know exactly, if he's going to be back, but we think he is. We have no Odell Beckham. On the flip side, if Chubb doesn't come back, that does make Hunt a very good play also, because he's only 7,500. He's not as priced as high as he was when he came up against the Raider game. You also got to look at this Browns defense. When we were talking before about picking Houston and stuff, if you take away the last game against the Raiders, which was just terrible weather and stuff, they've given up over 30 points in 4 or 5 on almost. He's given up over 30 points in every game except for one other one, and that was against the Colts. So this game could shoot out if Houston has their way. But if the Browns can run the ball and maybe maintain a little bit of clock, it might be okay. But to me, when it comes to receivers, I'm not really willing to pick like Landry or anything like that. Just stay away from for the passing game. To me, it's basically it's going to be either Chubb or Hunt, and that's it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And shout out to Stephen B in the YouTube chat who just pointed out to me that this could end up being the battle of the dick names if David Johnson and Nick Chubb are both declared in. Could be the Johnson versus Chubb. I think that Johnson is more well-known dick name, but Chubb is funnier. That's just my take, right? Chubb is not. It doesn't come to mind immediately for me. Like I'm more of a Johnson, but I do think that when I hear Chubb, it makes me laugh. When I hear Johnson, I'm so used to it.
Couldn't you also say my Johnson has a chubby?
You could certainly combine them, and that's probably when we're getting into elite naming territory. Yeah, it's just now it's out of control. But needless to say, in this particular case, referring to the actual running backs, I do prefer Chubb to Johnson. And to be honest with you, I like both running backs, Chubb and Hunt. If we can Chubb, Hunt, the Johnson, I don't know. Now it's getting crazy. Regardless, I'm with you.
I know. Now we're getting out of
control.
Bad. Now we're bringing Hunt. It's really bad.
It's getting really out of control. I'm just, my point being that I prefer Chubb, but if Hunt is the guy because Chubb is not there, which I think Chubb is going to play, right? They took him off of IR. They wouldn't take him off IR unless they were ready to have him play. I know he's practicing. It depends. I think that this was planned and everything's going to plan. He's going to play. Give me those running backs. I will use Hunt as a hedge because of how much Chubb I plan on playing. Houston, like you said, and you put it very politely, Joe. You said Houston can get run on. They're fucking terrible against the run. They'll have the third most fantasy points. They're awful in every way. The only concern here is they've done a good job against running backs when it comes to if your only option is the running back. If that's your only option, because you have no quarterback and you have no receivers, they've done okay to mask it. We saw them play Jane Robinson the first time when Minshew struggled. But I think the Browns are competent enough, and they have a very good offensive line, so I expect them to run, and I expect them to run well. Austin Hooper also expected to be back. And I think he's also another one of those cheaper tight ends you can't consider at 3,900. He had double-digit targets before his appendectomy. But, yeah, Joe, I like this game as well. I do. Next up, Jacksonville Jaguars. Green Bay Packers. We have a 52 total, down from 53.5. The Packers currently 14-point favorites at home. Talk to me about Jacksonville.
Very simple. It's James Robinson. He's probably a strong cash play consideration right now at 7,300. He's pretty much the only thing they have in their offense. You can run on Green Bay. We saw what Dalvin Cook does. It's just the play that you want to do, and we saw what even the Niners did last Thursday. So, and then receivers, you got to look. If Jair Alexander is out, then DJ Chark becomes really viable at 6,600. He's not going to be covered. If Jair Alexander is back, we need to see if Laviska Shenault is going to come back from his hammy, or if Keelan Cole is going to play. But if not, I mean, it's basically, I think you just want to stay away besides Robinson or Chark.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Robinson is the standalone play as well. I mean, yeah, Laviska Shenault at 3,800 is interesting. I wasn't all that impressed by. I mean, you know what? I'm not going to say I wasn't that impressed with Lutton, but it's the same thing. Like when you play certain teams that are just that bad, like you can get things done, right? Like when the Jets played Denver and we had Ripon, the third string quarterback in there. He looked pretty good, right? His offense put up like 28 points. So I think in this situation, the Packers defense a little bit better than Houston's, at least a little bit better, right? Similar situation as they are a run funnel, or at least, I think Green Bay's more of a true run funnel because they actually have a decent secondary when they have everyone healthy. So maybe we can consider Laviska at 38. Like you said, if Alexander is out, I certainly expect Alexander to spend the majority of time on Chark. That would certainly upgrade Chark's matchup. But James Robinson is the one I'd feel most comfortable with as well. What about the Green Bay side, man? 14-point favorites at home.
And they're going against like the worst defense in the league. So, obviously Aaron Rodgers you can play. He's a little bit priced up there with all the other guys that might be in more of a back and forth type of game. So, but if you want to play Rodgers, you him throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns, being fine. Aaron Jones, 8,800. He's a little expensive for my taste, but he's got a good matchup. Jacksonville can't stop anybody. Wide receiver, I think Devontae Adams is probably the lock play of the week. Everybody's going to go there in cash, no matter what the price is. They're going to try and fit him in more than, because if you look at the running backs that are above 9K, you got Kamara. In a decent, in a tougher matchup against the Niners defense. And then we got the thing with McCaffrey probably being out at 9,700. So it makes your choice. What's your pay up option? There's no Kelsey. So your receiver to pay up for is going to be Devontae Adams. Everybody's going to go there. He's probably going to be the highest player on the slate, I think. You probably could fade him in GPPs just because if you don't think they're going to score a lot of points, it's going to be a back and forth game. Might not have that ceiling, that 30, 40-point game, but we've seen Devontae go off and make value even on limited time. And then the defense, I'll take at 4,800. They're a little bit priced up on FanDuel, so, might not be the best place to go, but they're playing Jacksonville. So you might, especially if Alexander's in, I don't mind that. And then Robert Tonyan also, I think, is on the list this week for tight ends. Jacksonville can't stop anybody either, so. That's it. A lot of places if you want to go there, but I think basically Devontae is the play. Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to argue with a player that's getting the type of volume that he's getting. And Rodgers is not ashamed to admit it. He does the Pat McAfee show every Tuesday, and he's got no shame in his game. Not that he should. You should want to get one of the best receivers in the game the ball as much as you can, but he's just going to continue to throw him 15 to 20 targets a game. And the only thing standing in their way is if this game does get too ugly. And even that is more of a question, right? It's the same. This reminds me of a similar situation of the Jets Chiefs game where a lot of people now see, to me, I look at that slate as a learning experience because I think what it comes down to is on that slate, there really wasn't a lot of options that looked great. You were settling for a lot because you had to like something. And I remember even liking Carr that week. I never liked Carr. So clearly I was kind of just settling. And the difference is the field. How deep is the field? So I think that this is a spot where I'm going to circle it because this is a good matchup. This is a good team. The only thing you're worried about is, does this game actually shoot out? But what it comes down to is, are there other quarterbacks that are in good spots that you feel comfortable with? If not, if it's an ugly slate, rather than force yourself to play a Carr or a Baker Mayfield or whatever, then just fucking come here anyway and say, fuck it. If they win by 40 points, I'm just going to hope that it's because Rodgers threw for 40, all 40 of those points, and Adams caught all of them. So I'm with you on that. Obviously, leverage. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that Aaron Jones might be limited if they blow him out? I mean, the calf issue and stuff like that. Like,
he should. He should, but you could argue that in that last game against the Niners, he shouldn't have been out there when he was. They had him in there late. Now, it was his first game coming back from an injury, and they didn't really have any running backs, right? Jamal Williams was on the COVID list. A.J. Dillon was on the COVID list. But they could have given more to that Phillip Ervin dude simply because they were destroying. Yet they left Jones in there. So I would think that they wouldn't want to do it, like you said, especially the Packers, man. They've been so cautious with injuries. They've been so cautious. One other thing I'll say to change the subject, sort of. Keep an eye on the status of Alan Lazar. They did not activate him off IR last week for the Thursday Night Football game, but they could be doing it this week. They haven't said it yet, but if they do, he's $4K on DraftKings. And he's the true number 2 receiver on this team and looked pretty good with Rodgers. So just something to keep in mind. I'll let you, boy. But were you asking for the sake of Jamal Williams, or was it more like...
No, I was thinking of just like not even really wanting to play him because you just don't feel like he's going to just avoiding it. Like he could, but like if you're going to invest in anybody, it's Devontae. Yeah. And like the only way that he doesn't make salary is that if Aaron Jones basically...
if he does.
Bolts it, but I just can't see it. You know what I mean? I just feel like if they get ahead, they'll pull him.
On DraftKings, the pricing discrepancy is a little crazier. Aaron Jones is 7,100, while Adams is 9K. So it's a little more, a little more thought into it that way. You're like, well, I'm saving a lot of money. Maybe I'll hope that it's Jones. But I agree with you. Something we have to circle back because something's going to happen there. And there are some other. We already talked about the Houston Browns game. There are some legitimately good games. So I'm curious to see where the news comes out, what plays we have, and see where we end up on that one. Now, on to a not-so-exciting game. Washington football team, Detroit Lions, 46.5 total. Lions, 3.5-point favorites because they deserve to be favored against anyone. With that said, start off with the Washington football team, Joe.
We have another revenge game for Adrian Peterson, 2 in a row. He'll get like first 5 carries and like, okay, oh man, come out. This game, we could have a conversation. You just want to cross everything off except for, Terry McLaurin. He is 7K. His price doesn't go up, but all he does is put up, 7 and 100 and a touch. He has 30 targets in the last 3 weeks. 51 in the last 5. So when it comes to usage and a good value, good floor, Terry McLaurin is probably the only play from Washington that I will look at. The running game, I think you could talk about if you think the script is they're behind McKissick and stuff. I think he's way more, on DraftKings. You could talk about that, but I ain't going to touch it with Gibson or McKissick. Just not going to go there. So to me, it's McLaurin. That's it.
Yeah, I completely agree with McLaurin. Either way, you got to consider him each week. He's super talented. It's a shame that he's on this team at the moment. No offense to football team fans, Washington football team fans. Smith hasn't looked great. It's good to see him out there again after that gruesome injury, really scary, fucking terrible injury. It's good to see him out there, but he hasn't looked great. As far as the running back goes, yeah, you would want to come here, but Gibson is the one that's got the actual good running game matchup. He's the runner. Yet I think McKissick got over 10 targets last game. So they really put you in a weird position. And if you really want to come here, it's going to be based off game script. If you, like Joe said, if you think that, and it's a DraftKings really, like McKissick I think is only a thing on DraftKings. If you're going to pick anyone on FanDuel, it's going to be Gibson. But yeah, if you think they're trailing and you really want to run it back in this game because maybe you have it stacked, then yeah, it's McKissick. If you think that they're controlling and Detroit's playing from behind, then I guess it's Gibson. But like you said, Joe, keep it simple. I think McLaurin is the only person worth considering at the moment. What about Detroit?
Detroit, we got to see if Kenny Golladay is going to be back. That's the one question there. As for the running game, once again, it's one of those running games I just don't know if you really want to try and choose which one it's going to go to. Is it going to be Swift? Is it going to be Peterson? Or is it going to be Kerryon Johnson? It's just, to me, it's just, you don't need any of it. So just cross them off. To me, it's TJ Hawkinson. I think he is the play. Probably right up. I mean, his price is, going up steadily. But he seems to get, he's in for a touchdown almost every game. So Hawkinson is probably the only play that I like from the Lions.
Yeah, I agree. It's also a really good DVP spot. The Washington football team is actually 5th in DVP to a tight end. So, yeah, I don't mind the Hawkinson call. For me, it's going to come down to if I can afford him. He's 5-1 on DraftKings, which is not expensive, but it's more expensive than a lot of the guys in the 3K range or 4K range. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. If Galladay's in, I'm good with Galladay. If Galladay's out, I probably don't want anything else. I'm just not terribly interested in the spot. I don't like fucking with these games because I just don't always see a lot of ceiling. So if Galladay's in, he's cheap on DraftKings at $5,900. I could definitely get down on that. But other than that, it's probably Hawkinson. I agree. Moving on, we've got Tampa Bay Bucks, Carolina Panthers. We've got a 50.5 total. That's up from 48. Tom Brady and the Bucks opened up as 6-point favorites. Currently sitting at 5. Probably has something to do with the way they got their ass beat at the hands of the Saints. Joey, talk to me about Tampa Bay.
Well, we got the narrative that we call ATB, Angry Tom Brady. After getting embarrassed last week. I mean, they didn't really even have like a game plan. It looked like Brady was just like, I want to get the ball to my new toy, and it was screwing everybody else, and it totally screwed up the offense. This week, I don't know. You can't go there with Brady. Running backs, another situation. It's a good matchup. They're probably going to run the ball this week way more than they did last week, but who do you think gets the run? They're both priced the same on FanDuel. I don't really want to go there. You guys can go out and pick that. They're GPP options if you want. Receivers. Once again, all three of those guys are not producing to the prices that they're at. So I will pass on that. I guess you could throw Gronk in there, but this Tampa offense right now, I'm really just staying away from. I don't know if you really know what their identity is right now.
I agree that you don't know, but they're all very cheap for the star caliber of these guys. Like Brady at 6'3", like you said, an angry Brady, situation against Carolina, who's not exactly a good defense. Granted, their zone secondary has been manageable, but in general, I don't think either of us would consider them a good defense. And you have an opportunity to kind of buy low, more so on DraftKings. Tom Brady is 6'3", Mike Evans is 6'3", Godwin is 6K, Brown is 5'8". You can easily do a triple stack here and comfortably afford it. I mean, if you look at this team in general, man, like Tom Brady at quarterback, Leonard Fournette at running back, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski. This is a fucking fantasy team. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I know that, they didn't click, and they've had a couple games where, like, when they look bad, they look really fucking bad. But it's hard to imagine them looking bad again 2 weeks in a row, especially against this team who has been involved in a lot of shootouts so far this season. So I'm with you that I don't know where to pinpoint just yet. It's a good spot for the running backs. Fournette seems to be the pass catcher, but they aren't giving up on Ronnie Jones. Rojo, I should say. And Antonio Brown, like, where does he fit in all this? They were blown out so bad last week that we really don't have any sample because they were probably trying things out of the ordinary to see what they can get going. So I'm with you, Joe, that it's hard to pull the trigger because you don't know where to go. But I think I want to dig into this because, like, at MMEs, for example, like, this is a game I think or a team I would want to stack in different ways. So, like, maybe more of an MME approach thing. But there could be something here, and on DraftKings you have an opportunity to buy into it fairly low because of the pricing. What about Carolina, Joe? Talk to me about Christian McCaffrey. Do you think he's going to play this week or what?
I don't think he's going to play. I think he's going to be out this week. So that makes Mike Davis the chalk play of the week on both sites, 5,400. Even if the matchup isn't great, you're just going to play him. I also think that you can, if you want to do a value quarterback down below and go with Teddy Bridgewater, I feel like he's a good pivot off of maybe the two options down there that other people are going to be playing. So if you wanted to pivot off of that and get a little different, I don't mind Teddy. The receiving core, to me, you have to kind of take a look at what Curtis Samuel has done the last 3 weeks. At 5,700, he's only, he's put up touchdown the last 2 weeks. He keeps on going, be more involved in the offense. If you take away C-Mac, it makes him even a better play this week. And then I think on FanDuel, I don't know what their price is on DraftKings, but the Carolina defense is the lowest priced defense on the site on FanDuel at $3K. And I know that they're not the greatest defense, but we also saw this Tampa offense just be absolutely, terrible last week. And we think that they're going to come back, but at $3K at home, a couple sacks, we saw, Tom throw a couple picks. I don't mind this defense at $3K for the price and such. But to me, it's Mike Davis or Samuel.
Yeah, obviously, if Christian McCaffrey does play, it'll change things up. I would be interested in McCaffrey, yada, yada, yada. If he is not, though, Mike Davis is an absolute lock on DraftKings at 4K. They don't waste any time. Now, granted, I kind of do feel like I was played because the coaching staff said they were going to split series and all that bullshit. Bullshit. You got fucking Christian McCaffrey, and I should have fucking known better. You got Christian McCaffrey. You ain't splitting shit. But I also think that he might actually miss. He's got a shoulder injury. He's a little hurt. I don't see why you would, if he's got a banged up shoulder, you want to risk losing him permanently or for the rest of the season. So if he does miss, Mike Davis, absolute lock to me at 4K on DraftKings. End of story. I'm really only interested in Anderson and Moore in game stack situations because I do respect Tampa's defense at least to a degree. But Mike Davis looks like the play of the day if Christian McCaffrey's out. DraftKings 4K has been priced for a running back. Holla at ya, boy. Hit the like button if you haven't already, guys. We appreciate you. Likes that go a long way, really help us out. We have to counteract the assholes who keep hitting the thumbs down. It's the same 4 thumbs down, so we know it's some troll dickhead, but help us out, man. Help us out. Hit the like button. We're trying to provide you with some quality free content. We appreciate the love and support back. Next up, we've got the Patio Joe special, the Los Angeles Chargers, formerly of San Diego, visiting the Miami Dolphins, currently occupied by Tua. I still haven't gotten his last name pronunciation correct. 48 total.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa. Thank you, Joe. 48 total, down from 49. Dolphins currently 2.5-point favorites at home. Talk to me about your boys, Joe.
First of all, CK, if you have a hard time pronouncing Tagovailoa, try pronouncing Clemson's new quarterback's last name.
What's that?
Have you seen it?
No.
His name is DJ Ualagalegi.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Ualagalegi, and I might not even do it right, but he is the quarterback out of St. John Bosco. I refed his last championship game. He went to Clemson from high school, and I did that his championship game. The quarterback on the other team is now at Alabama. That's just a little thing, but yeah.
Pretty sick.
Try and Google. Yeah, the guy, he started against Notre Dame. He was the starter, true freshman against, Notre Dame last week. He threw for more passing yards against anybody at Notre Dame. So the kid's going to be good. He's only a true freshman. But to this game, Justin Herbert, you can throw him in there as a GPP option. Been nothing but brilliant. It's funny, as a Charger fan, don't know how every week I get at least 1 or 2 texts from somebody different. It's a different week every week. Man, you're going through so much pain with the Chargers losing the last play of the game, and literally all that, and then literally every time the text right after that. But Herbert is so good. You guys are going to be so good. I'm like, yeah, okay, I've heard it enough now. All right, but he really is, and I think he's outperforming Joe Burrow this year, at least so far. To me, the running game just went into all hell. We have another revenge game, Kalen Ballage against the Dolphins. But believe it or not, guys, Kalen Ballage was put down to the practice squad again on Monday or Tuesday. So right now he's on the practice squad. Maybe Justin Jackson will be back, or Josh Kelly. I don't know. I'm just staying away from that. I wouldn't play any of it. To me, it's Keenan Allen. He's got a great matchup against Nick Needham, who, if you like 2-3 weeks ago, slot corner gave up 21 targets to Cooper Kupp. Now we have a better receiver in Keenan Allen going up against him. And at 7,800, to me, I like him almost just as much as any other receiver in that area, including my boy DK, including, Michael Thomas, Diggs, even Cooper Kupp. I prefer Keenan over all of them as like a safe kind of play. Once again, last week, 11 targets, 9 for 103. I mean, he's just so consistent. So I like Keenan Allen pretty much. I mean, Herman Henry is in that group where if he gets in the end zone, he's fine. But I feel like you don't need him. To me, it's Keenan Allen is the play for the Chargers.
The fucking Justin Jackson thing was so tilting. I know he was chalky. I mean, he was like 40% owned in the 150 on DraftKings, like the 3-entry max. So, like, he was chalk, yeah. That was so fucking tilting. So, I mean, he was on some of my best teams. And it wasn't a terrible week on DraftKings, but it could have been. Even on FanDuel, I won. And that was with him in a couple of teams. I could have done so much. It could have been such a good week had I gotten something from him. That's just unfucking real. And it has everybody afraid to go back to that situation. With that said, there is some game theory aspect to that, right? Like, last week he was 40% owned. This week nobody's going to touch him because they're afraid. But I'm afraid too. So I'm just going to have to kind of leave it at that for the time being. I will say this, though. Miami, the way to attack Miami has been on the ground despite Chase Edmonds' lack of efforts last week. Well, I don't want to say he didn't try, but it was ineffective, that's for sure. Aside from that note, Keenan Allen every week, man. The dude's going to get double-digit targets. He's like Adams Light. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's like Adams Light right now in terms of DFS. You know his quarterback is going to feed him. Obviously, there's some differences between Adams himself, who I think is just an elite talent, and there's some differences with Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of the game, throwing to you. But yeah, Allen is getting the same type of volume. Not exactly the same, but good enough volume. And he's been matchup proof this season, so I'm good with that. And I got no issues with that. I see Patio Joe and Paulie D going at it in the chat right now. Paulie D says Herbert has done great, but Burrow is way better. Sorry, Joey. And then Joey says maybe, but Herbert has done better this year so far. Could you argue, though? Could you argue that he's on a better team? I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have weapons in Cincinnati. Could you argue he's on a better team?
I don't know. The Chargers write the book on giving up leads late in the game. So, it's I think that they both have running back ones in Mixon and Eckler, which he doesn't have. They both have good receivers. I think maybe all three, are our take, and Paulie could say I'm wrong, but the numbers don't lie. Herbert's numbers are better than Burrow's this year. It's just the way it is. They're better, okay? I hate to say it. I even looked at it. Maybe Paulie's right. Maybe Burrow's numbers better. But, on FanDuel, he's only averaging 19 points a game, and Herbert's 25. Have that. Herbert started a little bit less games. So, anyways, but yeah, I think that the rest of this game, the Dolphins, I don't really know anybody on the Dolphins. I mean, you could play Tua, but I just haven't played anybody on the Dolphins this year, and I don't think you need to play anybody on the Dolphins this year. So, but they probably will win the game. Their defense is priced up for some reason, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously their defense exploded the other week, but last week gave up a lot of points to Mr. Kyler Murray. Not that I'm not trying to knock him. Kyler Murray's, pretty fucking good. Tua's kind of interesting at his price. Like, he looked pretty good against Arizona. Only took 28 throws because his team was finding other ways to get things done. He was pretty efficient, though, 20 for 28. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. 7 rushing attempts for 35 yards. That's kind of interesting. Do we have Kyler Murray light on our hands? I wouldn't be quite willing to say that after one game. I want to see what he's got. The Chargers defense, man. Now, one thing I will say, Joe, you're right. Every year with the Chargers, you hear like, oh, they're supposed to be good, and they keep losing these close games. Always close games. their defense has been a really big, like, consistent thing with that. Oh, this year their defense is going to be good. Never good. Oh, this year defense is going to be good. Never good. And we're in that kind of zone this year, right? Like, it's kind of not good, kind of good. Really, like, certain parts are good, but then they give up the big play. It's like, what is it? Are they good or not, Joe?
They're not good because they're missing one of the top 10 defensive players in the game in Derwin James. You know, he's been out all year, and it shows, you know. So Joey Bosa's been hurt. Ingram's been out. So this defense it's been giving up points left and right. That's the thing. Like, with Miami, you want to go there, but it's like, I don't know. To me, I feel like you would just play Tua, and that was it, because, like, there's nobody else that's, like, consistent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how they're scoring, like Parker, Preston Williams, Gesicki, like, where, like, they're scoring points, but, like, where is it coming from?
Right.
You know, so I just feel like it'd be Tua, and that's it if you're going to play him. And I don't mind his price, to be honest with you. And I think that he might be a little popular because the Chargers defense does give up a lot of points. I mean, it was over 60 again, right? This week? The point spread? 60 points again, scored a total.
Yeah.
Games,
total points, yeah.
You know, so I just think they need I just think it's going to be another shootout. I just don't know how, where it's going to go with Miami. So it'd be 2 or nothing.
I'm with you. I will say this. Casey Hayward, I think, is questionable. If Casey Hayward were to miss, give an upgrade to Devontae Parker. Right? We could agree on that. Right?
Yeah.
Doing dirds. Next up, we have a Buffalo Bills, Arizona Cardinals matchup. 56 total, up from 52. The Cardinals opened up -1. They're up to -2 at home. Talk to me about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Well, this is going to be like a show me game, sort of. I know that they played last week against the Seahawks, and they drilled them, but now you're going off a big win. Now you're going across the country and playing Kyler Murray. And, the Arizona Cardinals, and I don't know, 8,700 for Allen. I felt like that their game plan obviously was against what I thought that they were going to do 100%. They only ran the ball like 5 times. But I just don't think that they're going to keep throwing. Like, he's not going to throw as much as he threw last week. I mean, they just kept throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing. And at 8,200, he wound up paying off. So this week, is it gonna be the same? I think that in order to win, he might have to do that. So it might start slow and then come back. But I would prefer Murray in this game at the price because they're only $100 apart. Running back wise, it's Zach Moss on it. Receivers, Diggs, Brown. That was another thing I think that was really frustrating last week with the whole stacks with Buffalo. Everybody had the Diggs and Beasley stack or Brown, but he went to like Gabriel Davis for a touchdown. Then he went to somebody else for a touchdown. It really would have been a big day if he would have correlated with Diggs or Beasley or something like that. So I don't mind it. I think this game is going to shoot out, and I think a lot of people will go there. Tight end, you don't need it. Defense, you don't need it.
Yeah, I want to follow the status of Kirkpatrick and those guys closely because this looks like a really good John Brown spot, assuming Patrick Peterson is going to cover Diggs. Again, not for the sake that I think Diggs is good enough to compete with any cornerback, but again, if you want to choose the path of least resistance, it would seem like John Brown would be that guy this week, and it certainly worked in their favor last week. He looked pretty good. So, same thing with Preston Williams. I was talking to Paulie before about how, well, wouldn't that mean Preston Williams? We were talking before the slate started. And I feel like Preston Williams could be in a decent spot if everybody looked at what Seattle just did to the Cardinals. So, kind of interested in John Brown here. I agree with you on Allen. Even on DraftKings, his price at 7.5 seems a little elevated. I'm not ruling him out, but I agree with you that the price seems elevated when Kyler Murray on the other side is only $5,000 more. Who projects better for us. So John Brown's kind of interesting. I'm cool with Diggs and Beasley too, but John Brown is the one I got kind of circled right now, and I'll be kind of digging into. What about the Arizona side?
The Arizona side, I think, the blooms off the rose of, Chase Edmonds. He's at 7,100 now. And I think in a cash game setting, if you're going to be picking running backs at that point, I think you're just going to go to James Robinson at 7,300 in that same area. So I don't mind Edmonds, but like we saw, like he didn't really have much done more last week, but he didn't. So I'm worried about the usage. It's basically Kyler Murray. I think, DeAndre Hopkins is slowly like his usage hasn't been as high, maybe because teams are rolling coverage over there. But he's going to get Tre'Davious White if he's healthy. So if he's not, then that's really going to open things up. But Christian Kirk's actually the guy that's been just skyrocketing the last few weeks. And if he's going to be operating in the slot, we know how Buffalo can't cover the slot receivers. So it might be another good game for Christian Kirk again.
It is on DraftKings. It's tempting when you have a guy like Hopkins. I agree. The matchup, assuming that White is playing, the matchup's not ideal, and they have kind of veered away from him. They've opened up the offense more, gotten Kirk the ball more. Even Fitzgerald had a bigger role last week. But at 7-7 on DraftKings, a PPR site, where at the end of the day, if he ends up having one of those fucking 20 target games, he could erupt. I mean, if you're gonna look at not playing Adams, then you have to kind of do it for someone who's got the same upside, at least on a point per dollar perspective. So Hopkins is kind of that guy, especially if White's ruled out. But in the meantime, I think that while Kyler's fine and Kirk is fine and all these guys are fine, I think the running situation does have me interested. I would need Kenyon Drake out, because if Kenyon Drake plays, I might look at him at 4,900, as crazy as that sounds. But Buffalo has given up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. If Chase Edmonds is in, I know it's been a disaster with Edmonds since Drake has gotten hurt. And it seems like Arizona's just not a very good running team. Like, it seems like they're just not efficient at running the ball. And that's scary because they don't throw to their running backs a whole ton. But 6-3 for Edmonds in a good matchup at home, assuming Kenyon Drake is out, is something that I may have to just bite the bullet on, suck the dirty tip, and, see what happens. But definitely a game that I think we'll want to have a definitive answer on or definitive direction on coming into this Friday's Y stream, because it's got a fucking massive total and it looks to be a shootout. Next up, Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders. Almost fucked up there. 51.5 total, up from 51. The Raiders opened up -4.5. They're up to -5. Joe, talk to me about the dirty Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I like this game. I think people will go there. I think it's going to be somewhat popular. We got Drew Lock coming off of a great performance. All we see is the arrow pointing up. Every week he's been playing a little more. If they decide to throw the ball more, I think it'll be better. Like, ditch the run game. Like, that's why they lost last week against Atlanta. They tried to run the ball the first half and they just totally got out of rhythm. Once they started passing it against that terrible secondary, was it. So to me, Drew Lock is a cash game option if you want to pay down this week. I know we don't really pay down, and last week it's up, but if you're going to pay down, I think it's between Lock and actually the guy on the other side, Carr. But Lock has got a good matchup. We know the Raiders secondary can't really cover anybody. Running back wise, you told you how I feel about the running game. I feel like Philip Lindsay is probably better than Melvin Gordon and has more plays, more of an upside. But I feel like, once again, the play is going to be Mr. Jeudy. We can go right back to Jerry Jeudy this week at 5,800. He's going to have a good matchup against the secondary that is very beatable. And we saw what Keenan Allen did. We saw what, if they can line up Jeudy. Like I said, Judy's been lining up on the outside more often than before. So I don't, necessarily mind it. His price did not go up at all. Went up $100 on FanDuel. So at 5,800, he becomes another cash game play again, especially if you're trying to, fit in two running backs as high as that. So then tight end, if no Fant's okay, I guess I would go there. But if not, to me, it's Jeudy. And then if you want to do a little Patrick and Hamler, I'm okay with that too.
I'm still tempted by the Gordon-Lindsay situation. Neither of them touched the ball barely at all last week because the game script just ruled them out. And that could happen this week. But they are cheap. It is a good matchup on paper. Noah Fant would be another one to consider. He burnt me kind of bad last week. I don't think it was his fault. I think it was his team's fault, whatever. But his backup got hurt, so I think they could end up leading on Fant more. And aside from last week, the matchup was nuttiest of all nuttiest, and they decided to stop targeting the tight end. Even though the trend was that they were targeting the tight ends, maybe it's because Tim Patrick came back. Who gives a fuck anyway? I think these guys are very cheap. Judy and Patrick, you can consider them. I'm just kind of lukewarm on the whole situation in general. I'm not like super into it because the prices have come up. But I'm not really knocking it either because the Raiders defense is ass butter. What about the Raiders offense?
Yeah, the Raiders, with the Raiders offense, to me, I think it's Derek Carr. And that's the main option that you're going to go to. Darren Waller is the highest priced tight end. So if you're going to pay up this week, it's going to be Darren Waller. He's pretty safe. He's going to get his targets. I just don't know I just feel like there's other guys that could match him, and he's a little bit more, so I'm not really into it. Wide receiver, Nelson Aguilar just keeps on doing dirty. And at some point, I think if you're playing GPPs in a lot of lineups, you can have him in there. And Josh Jacobs, I would not go there because Denver has a pretty good run D.
Mr. Aguilar. The worst part about him, outside of one game, against Tampa, he had 9 targets. But the other decent games he's had, including this most recent one against the Chargers, he had 3 total fucking targets against the Chargers where he dropped this 13.5. Kansas City, he had 2 targets where he put up a 14.7. This is just not a volume team. And because of that, on small slates where I have no choice but to look at Ruggs and Aguilar and Renfro and all these guys, I don't want to. And so with that said, I think the guys that I prefer to look at, even though it's a bad matchup, are Josh Jacobs for the purposes of volume, even though he got trolled a little bit last week. I think it was, with Washington, right? Came in and did some troll action. So Waller's the only one that I really trust. And you got Jason Witten lurking. He's lurking like a creeper. But Waller is like the only one that's getting consistent usage in every game. Everybody else is a fucking crapshoot. I have a hard time coming here. Now, I think ownership is going to be low, but there are a lot of really good games. I have a hard time marrying myself to this one in the early going. We'll see. We'll see if I soften up as time goes on. Next up, Joe, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers. We have a 46 total, down from 48. Steelers opened up -10. They're down to -7. We heard about some potential COVID lists action that we got to pay attention to on Pittsburgh, like Big Ben, for instance. But we're going to talk about thorough Joe Burrow first. Talk to me about the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals, they're coming off of a bye. They're going into Pittsburgh. This is Burrow's first time into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's number 1 D. It's going to be tough. I think that this is a Pauly D special. If I had to guess, Pauly D literally is pulling out the 8 Ds right now and is like, I am going to just GPP all over this all day long. I could be wrong, but I could totally see this being a Pauly D special. I think, we need to know about Joe Mixon. If he's back, that kills Gio Bernard. But if, Mixon's out again, Gio becomes another just volume play like he had last at 6,200. I think people will go there. Wide receiver spot, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, it's fine. And tight end, I don't think you need it. There's not much here to like, I think, from the Bengals. But I think you could play them in a GBP setting because I think it'll be a Pauly D special.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting GPP game. Joe Burrow has been in a bunch of shitty matchups, and yet he's somehow managed to provide some sort of fantasy relevance, if not through himself, via one of his teammates in the past game. Going to Joe Burrow is interesting for the simple sake that he's 5'7" on DraftKings. You're getting an opportunity to buy low on a quarterback that's proven that he has a ceiling, and is proven to have a pretty decent floor with the amount of volume that they've been throwing. Now, this is assuming that Pittsburgh is healthy enough to, lead the game script we expect them to. So hard to say that Burrow's my favorite quarterback or anything like that. But I do think, like you said, for the purposes of tournaments, I think he's an option. And you could always consider his receivers. And Tyler Boyd in the slot seems like a pretty interesting option. I don't love the price when you consider some of the players he's around. AJ Green's 4,400. T. Higgins 5,500. And on top of that, the Steelers, this good defense we keep hearing about, has given up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So I think there's definitely something here, especially with Cincinnati coming off a bye. There's probably something here, and we have to see. Pittsburgh may end up losing more players, man. They got a COVID issue. I think Big Ben is not tested negative. He's tested negative, but he's quarantined right now because he was in close contact or something like that with someone who did. So we have a lot of things, man. It's, some shit's can spread. We got COVID mania going on. What about the Pittsburgh side?
Well, the Pittsburgh side, you gotta really wonder what is going on with Big Ben and with the COVID. But I think that he's just has been in close contact. So that means if he tests negative all week, he'll be able to play. But we also have his knee issue too. So I don't know
his knees issue.
What I heard,
right? I think it hurt his both knees.
Yeah. He has a. They said he has a strained MCL. But Ben, he'll probably play on it. But you have to wonder if he doesn't, Mason Rudolph, I don't know.
That fucking guy sucks.
James Conner, I'm not going there. I'm sorry. I don't care if the matchup's great or nothing. He had a great matchup last week. It did nothing. It was terrible. So James Conner is out. Receiving wise, the number one receiver in my mind is Deontay Johnson. He's the one that gets the most consistent targets, and he's the one that's lowest priced. So, I feel like you could play all three of them, in one-off situations. It's hard to really tell which one's going to go off or not. Ebron is fine too. Bengals can't really cover the tight end. I don't mind it, but I just traded for Deontay Johnson in one of my fantasy leagues. So I feel like if he's healthy, he's the number one in that offense. So I don't mind that. Maybe Steelers D obviously too.
I completely agree that Deontay Johnson is their number one, and I agree with the healthy part. But it's a big if or when he's healthy. It seems to be like every game he gets some sort of injury. Every other game it's significant enough to ruin his day, and those who backed him. But I do find it ironic that he's the cheapest guy, and he is the number one receiver on this team. If you look, like you said, every game that he's been fully healthy, he's gotten double-digit targets pretty much. And one thing that the Steelers have been doing a lot because of Ben's lack of mobility, which should be, assuming he plays, should be even more so this week with his bad knees. They've been doing a lot of quick passes. So I expect Claypool and Deontay Johnson to get a lot of quick screen-type plays, get him the ball in space, and just have him run. So I prefer Johnson, but I will keep an eye on Claypool, who I think will be lower owned because of the price. Connor, I'm willing to give another shot to, and I'm looking at the chat, and it's mixed. Most of the people are also pissed at Connor. It was a good matchup and everything, but if he was really, he was expected to be somewhat popular last week. If he slides under the radar, because everybody's listen, I like Hunt and Chubb more than I like Connor, and they're all around the same price. But I do expect Connor to have lower ownership relative to everything. If what happens if Rudolph ends up starting, would that make you like Connor more or less?
More
because of the usage, right? More. They're gonna have to use him.
Yeah.
See, yeah. I feel like that also. However, I think they'll be more efficient if Ben is in. And I worry that if Rudolph is in, they may do some more Wildcat stuff, which could lead to Snell getting some action, or Jalen Samuel, McFarland, and those cats. So I don't know, man. But this game is kind of interesting. Like you had mentioned it for tournaments. It's got tournament written all over it. Not a lot of things that I would touch in cash either. But in tournaments, maybe something that we want to dissect come Friday. Next up, Joe, we got 2 more games left, man. We're rolling. We got the San Francisco 49ers and the New Orleans Saints. We've got a 49.5 total down from 51. The Saints opened up -9. They're up to -10 because they beat the shit out of the Bucks. On primetime, talk to me about the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers are coming in, hobbled, and we don't know who's healthy or not. We don't know if Brandon Ayuk is going to be healthy. We're supposed to maybe be getting Deebo Samuel back, too. So he could be I feel like Deebo, they try and get him the ball any way they can. Deebo is more involved in this offense when healthy than Ayuk. Ayuk is only really involved because Debo was not there a couple weeks ago. So if Debo Samuel's back, that makes him a good play. The running game, Mostert, they say they might be back, but I don't know. I think this is a game where you're probably going to stay away from most of the Niners. I could see Jordan Reed because the Saints have had trouble covering the tight end earlier this year, so I could see Jordan Reed coming back. I don't mind that. Nick Mullins, I want none of. But yeah, not much for the Saints. I mean, for the Niners.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I'd be most interested in the tight end situation here with Kittle out, but even that is a debate. The Saints have struggled against tight ends. They've struggled against the pass game in general. Looking at Samuel and Ayuk, I don't know. It just seems scarier for me. I think because of the pricing. Not that they're expensive, but 5.7 and 5.4 on DraftKings compared to 3.8 or 3.5. I don't know. I lean towards Reed. I think Reed will eventually take that role and dominate it. I think that Dwelly's played well enough, though, to earn the snaps he's gotten. But these are two cheap tight ends in a good matchup, and I expect them to get some kind of work. Debo Samuel being back certainly muddies up the situation, whatever. But I agree with you, man. We need to know this injury news. We have to know who's in and who's out, and it's tough to make that move. But you expect them to be trailing, so something in the pass game maybe, and the tight ends are cheap. What about Drew Brees, Kamara, Michael Thomas, and the Saints?
All right, now this might be another hot take or nothing, but I feel like this is the classic, just trap game for the Saints. Like, I'm looking at their schedule. They just came off a big Sunday night game against the Buccaneers winning, and they got it, squished between another divisional game next Sunday of the Falcons coming off of a bye. You got the Niners coming in here a late week, 10 days off. Like, they could be just a little bit sluggish, like we've seen in some of their games. Probably not, but it could happen. Running backs, Kamara, I don't mind it. He's $9K. I don't know if he'll be cash, in the cash viable or not, but probably he's not a bad option. Obviously, Breeze, I don't want any part of. Michael Thomas, I'm cool with. He just seems like he's just spreading the ball out to everybody. So I don't know if Michael Thomas is worth the $8,500 price tag right now. Even though he had a good game, but he only went 5 for 51, didn't even get the end zone. So this game is really weird. I think I like the Saints D the most.
I don't disagree. On FanDuel especially. The Saints D got a really good price on FanDuel. When I was looking at it earlier. Yeah, I'm not into Drew Brees. Interesting spot for Kamara and Thomas. I think Kamara will be low owned. I know it's not a good matchup on paper, but if this game does go according to the Vegas script, you would think that Kamara gets a chance to really eat. Being that we say that they just played Tampa Bay and Kamara really didn't do much. Granted, everyone else kind of just did fine and they didn't need Kamara, and he's been a workhorse. So maybe the plan is to ease off and give him some break. I don't know. Michael Thomas kind of falls into the similar category as D-Hop. We haven't seen it from Thomas, but we know it exists. 7,400 on DraftKings. So if you're talking about not playing Adams or whatever the case is, you're looking for that star caliber guy at a cheaper price. Thomas is in that same consideration category with D-Hop if you feel you need to spend up for one of these receivers. But as of right now, I have a hard time kind of pinpointing which way I want to attack him. It's still the 49ers defense. Not that they're, great elite. They have injuries they're dealing with too, but they're still a decent defense. So it's not like I'm super giddy. With that said, the Saints are home. And we know the Saints like to roll at home. It'll be an interesting game to watch. The letdown spot, I totally understand, right? They just beat up a division rival. They were underdogs, fucking destroyed them. I do get that. And I think the 49ers will put up more of a fight in some way. Whether it's scoring a little more than expected or preventing the Saints from scoring more than expected, I do think they'll put up a fight with all the rest they've been given and time to prepare for this matchup.
Last year they put up a classic, if you remember.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
New Orleans.
Absolutely. But the Niners are just a different team. It's just hard to imagine, but it could happen. Mm-hmm. I would feel more confident if my boy Beat Hard was in there, son. Beat Hard.
Beat Hard.
Last game on the slate, and it looks like one of the best on the board. We've got the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams. We have a 55.5 total. The Rams opened up as -1.5 point favorites at home. They're up to -2. Talk to me about Russ Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, well, I mean, even on seemed like an off game for Russ, he still put up 24 FanDuel points. So if you want to go right back to Russell Wilson, I will not fault you for anything. Running backs, I'm staying away from that. DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, now Carson might be back. Who knows? It's all screwed up. Receivers, I'm going to go back to saying that this is going to be another Lockett week, thinking that Jalen Ramsey has a little bit of respect. And, you won't be able to, stop the man, Metcalf DK, but maybe able to hold him down. And, once every 3 weeks, Tyler Lockett has a good week. So this could be the third week now. So I prefer Lockett on a cash game setting, but you can always play DK. Tight end, Disley is fine. He actually had a little bit more of a role, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think Russ doesn't play every week. I'm just going to continue to attack Seattle games on both sides of the ball. And that's Russ this week. I know he's expensive. I don't care. He's one of the expensive guys I'll play no matter what because he's just having that kind of season. Chris Carson being back kind of interesting. I don't hate him if he's back fully. Again, the Rams defense has been respectable. But I don't hate the spot. Like you said with Seattle, you kind of just get rid of you don't give a fuck who they're playing. You just do what you do. I agree with you, Joe. I'm looking more towards Lockett. I built some really good-looking teams with the game stacks of this game, and Lockett fits that build beautifully. The Rams are one of the faster-paced teams in the league in situation-neutral pace, 5th. But DVP-wise, DVOA, they're a pretty good defense. So this will be an interesting way to go, and I think that attacking them through the slot could be the better way to go. And like you said, Seattle will stay away from from the top corner. They will if they think they have a better matchup elsewhere. With that said, talk to me about the Rams.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff has got to be in the conversation in cash games and in all settings. You said they're playing up tempo. He's saw what every quarterback aside from Jimmy Garoppolo has done against this Seattle defense, who's just been bad. So they are getting a little bit healthier. So I can kind of see that, but Jared Goff has got to be in consideration. The running game, Darrell Henderson sits out. Then we have a conversation about Malcolm Brown or Cam Akers. If Darrell Henderson's in, we don't need any of that. Where you want to go this week is going to be the receivers. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Josh Reynolds, I think, are all playable. I think that you're going to pick, to me, Robert Woods is $500 less than Cooper Kupp and has been more productive this season. So I prefer Robert Woods in a cash game setting, but I feel like Cooper Kupp is just as playable too. We saw them just being able to pick apart Buffalo. Saw them pick apart the Seattle offense. So we have the Rams coming in. Robert Woods at 7,200, Josh Reynolds at 5,000. I think is a great option too. And then tight end, Higbee or Everett. You could, if you're doing a million lineups, you want to do it. That's fine. But to me, I'm ranking Woods, Kupp, and then Reynolds.
Shit. I think this is how you win this week. I mean, this is how you win most weeks. You attack the Seattle Seahawks. You go attack their games with the pass game. I love Jared Goff. Seahawks are giving up the second most fantasy points in the league to opposing quarterbacks like Jared Goff. I understand that the Rams are very run heavy. They like to run the ball. But Seattle's been pretty good against the run, especially with Jamal Adams back in there. However, Jamal Adams has been terrible against pass defense. I think I heard Adams is allowing like a 122 or a 144 passer rating when he's out there. But yeah, Cooper Kupp, Woods, Reynolds, all three of them. Which one? Not exactly sure, but I'll pair them off in twos with Goff. I don't care. I'll do one with Kupp and Woods. I think that if we don't have the Mike Davis value, then Reynolds can certainly come in handy. And regardless, I feel like I want at least one of these guys on every team because I don't see at least one of these guys not having a big game, if not more, if not all three. Onslaught's on the table. Mm-hmm. I expect a lot of points. I think that Seattle's offense is good enough, even coming off of like you said, in a game where they kind of struggled offensively, they still put up tons of points. More importantly, they can't stop opposing points. So I think the game pushes. I love Goff. I love Kupp. I love Woods. I like Reynolds. I'll find a way to work them in. Maybe even taking a look at the tight ends if I run out of teams with those fucking receiver sets. But, I mean, that's been the recipe each week. Even with Josh Allen, I know that there were other ways to go. But in the end of the day, if you attacked Russ, maybe you whiffed a little bit on the Diggs thing or the bring back with Lockett or whatever. But when Allen went for 40, I mean, went for 30, 39 DraftKings points. So it's just a thing. I'm just going to keep doing it each week. College boy. Pimp, and that is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for the game-by-game breakdown on our first look. Appreciate those of you watching live. I know we spontaneously decided to go a little bit earlier, but, I'm appreciative of it. We'll be back at it this Friday. Patio Joe, myself, Paulie D, the three amigos, the three OGs, with more of our final takes as position by position as we get closer to lock on Sunday. That'll be Friday night, 11:30 p.m. Eastern. And then myself, Paulie D, will be back on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, to talk about Thursday Night Football. Other than that, Joe, you have anything in closing before we get up out of here?
Nah, man, just enjoy it, man. This season is just flying by. It's crazy.
It is, man. It's definitely flying by. We're already, more than halfway there. And I'll say this. Don't forget, listener league links are in the description. FanDuel and DraftKings. Make sure you get in there. Winner gets $25. Hit the like button if you haven't already, because it helps us out. And we got douchebags hating on us, and we got to counteract the hate with some love. So hit us up with the likes. For Patio Joe, for myself, for the entire Wise Tech Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.